Before diving into this incredible story, remember to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Here, every story has something to say, and you won't want to miss a single one. The rain was falling heavily on the city, pounding against the windows of St. Mary's Hospital with an almost furious rhythm. In the deserted lobby, only a few fluorescent lights flickered, casting a pale light on the damp tiles. The air was thick with antiseptic smells and a heavy silence, broken only by the ticking of the wall clock. Emily Carter, a newly graduated nurse, paced the corridors with a mixture of fatigue and impatience. Her tired eyes avoided meeting the patients' gazes, for each face seemed to remind her of the weight of her responsibility. She hadn't yet grasped that some mistakes, even unintentional ones, could change lives forever. In the waiting room, a pregnant woman, Vanessa Thompson, struggled to remain standing despite the excruciating pain in her abdomen. Her clothes were soaked, her hands trembled, and yet she held her head high. Vanessa was no ordinary patient. She was the wife of the hospital's owner, Michael Thompson, a respected and influential man throughout the country. But Emily, consumed by her unconscious prejudices and exhaustion, didn't know this. As Emily walked past Vanessa, she looked away and continued on her rounds, ignoring the palpable distress of the expectant mother. This simple gesture, born of indifference and complete ignorance, would trigger a series of events that would transform the lives of everyone present that night. A few floors above, Michael Thompson was checking the equipment, unaware of the danger threatening his family. In a few hours, he would discover the oversight of that night and the harsh lesson his staff would have to learn. That evening, in the pouring rain, a single averted glance sealed a nurse's fate and highlighted the fragility of human lives in the face of ignorance and prejudice. The following morning, St. Mary's Hospital resumed its usual rhythm. The corridors, still damp from the night's rain, echoed with the hurried footsteps of staff and the clatter of medical carts. Emily Carter, still reeling from her own unconscious negligence, tried to concentrate on her tasks. But a dull tension had settled in her chest. Deep down, she knew she had made a grave mistake. What she didn't know was that Michael Thompson, the hospital owner and Vanessa's husband, had decided to personally investigate what had happened. He walked measured steps across the main hall, his gaze piercing, observing each face with cold, implacable intensity. Emily was suddenly stopped by Michael's firm, icy voice. "Emily Carter, can you explain why you ignored a patient last night?" Emily's blood ran cold. Her hands trembled slightly, her mind desperately searching for excuses. I didn't notice," she stammered, but the weak excuse sounded hollow. Michael then produced a detailed file, revealing that the ignored patient was none other than Vanessa Thompson, his wife, 8 months pregnant, in distress and left alone for nearly an hour. Silence fell over the corridor like an oppressive veil. "You must understand, Emily," Michael continued, his voice cold but controlled, "that your actions, even unintentional ones, have consequences. Here, every patient matters, and ignoring someone is not simply a mistake, it's a serious offense." Emily felt a cold sweat run down her back. Her heart was pounding. She realized that this mistake wasn't just professional, it was personal, and Michael Thompson wasn't the type to let that kind of negligence slide. That day, Emily began to realize that her career and reputation now hung by a thread. She would have to face not only the wrath of a protective and influential husband, but also the harsh truth about her own unconscious biases. And deep down, she knew that redemption would be long, painful, and essential. Michael Thompson's office was spacious, but that morning it felt overwhelming to Emily. The walls were decorated with diplomas, family photos, and awards, testaments to Michael's influence and success. But to Emily, all this decor seemed to be silently judging her. Michael sat her down, his dark eyes fixed on every micro-expression of the young nurse. The room seemed to suffocate Emily, each second reminding her of the mistake she had made. "Emily," Michael began, his voice icy but controlled, "what you did last night is unacceptable. Ignoring a patient in distress is not simply a professional failing, it's a personal affront." Emily lowered her head, ashamed. She stammered. I didn't know. I didn't notice. I'm sorry." Michael slowly shook his head. That's no excuse. You didn't just ignore a patient. You ignored my wife. Do you understand the seriousness of your actions? Emily felt her hands grow sweaty. Her mind raced, unable to find the words to defend herself. Michael continued. I could take drastic measures, but I believe you deserve a chance to redeem yourself. You will undergo comprehensive training in patient care and diversity, and you will remain under supervision until further notice. Every action counts, Emily. You must understand that the slightest negligence can cost lives. Emily nodded, fear and guilt mingling in her eyes. She knew her career was at stake, but more than that, she had just realized that her unconscious prejudices had almost endangered a pregnant woman and her baby. Michael ended the meeting with a penetrating look. You have an opportunity to show that you are better than your mistakes. Don't waste it. As she left the office, Emily felt a mixture of shame and determination. This confrontation would change how she saw her work, her responsibility to patients, and, most importantly, herself. She understood that redemption wouldn't come easily, but it was now or never. The following days were a true nightmare for Emily Carter. Every gesture, every decision was scrutinized. She had to undergo intensive training in patient care, emergency management, and cultural sensitivity. But what weighed most heavily on her was the awareness of her mistake. She had almost endangered Vanessa Thompson, the wife of the most influential man in the hospital. Emily spent her days observing her experienced colleagues, noting their every move and learning to detect signs of pain or discomfort in patients. She realized how essential empathy and vigilance were, and how a simple act of negligence could have irreversible consequences. One morning, while making her rounds, Emily saw Vanessa walking slowly down the corridor, supported by a caregiver. The pregnant woman seemed exhausted but serene, her rounded belly carrying the life of a perfectly healthy baby. Emily felt a pang of guilt, but also an opportunity for redemption. She approached gently. Mrs. Thompson. I wanted to apologize for last night. I should never have left you alone. Vanessa looked at her with a calm, tired smile. Thank you, but it's nothing. The important thing is that everything is fine now. These words, simple but sincere, did something to Emily. She realized that redemption was not just a matter of rules or supervision, it was a matter of heart and caring for others. The weeks passed, and Emily gradually became an exemplary nurse. She responded attentively to patients' needs, anticipated emergencies, and, above all, had learned to set aside her prejudices. Every smile, every gesture of appreciation strengthened her resolve never to repeat her mistakes. Then came the day of Vanessa's delivery. Emily, on the front line, was present every step of the way, applying everything she had learned. The perfectly healthy baby was welcomed into the world with a vigorous cry that seemed to celebrate not only its birth, but also Emily's transformation. Michael, watching his wife and child, knew that despite the nurse's mistake, the hospital and his family were in good hands. This experience left an indelible mark on Emily. She had been confronted with the gravity of her actions, and she had chosen to change. Negligence and ignorance had transformed into vigilance and compassion, and for Emily, it was a lesson she would never forget. A few weeks after the birth, St. Mary's Hospital returned to its usual rhythm. But for Emily Carter, nothing was ever the same again. Every corridor, every patient, every gesture reminded her of the night she had almost made an irreparable mistake. One morning, Michael Thompson summoned Emily to his office. The young nurse entered cautiously, her heart pounding. She knew this meeting would determine her future. Michael, seated behind his immense mahogany desk, gazed at her with a mixture of severity and calm. Emily, he began, his voice deep but measured, I have observed your progress. You have shown a transformation that I did not necessarily expect. Emily felt a wave of relief, but she remained humble. Thank you, Mr. Thompson. I know I made a serious mistake, and I will do everything I can to never repeat it. Michael nodded, a slight smile crossing his usually impassive face. You have understood what many never understand, each patient is a life, and every gesture counts. You have learned to see beyond appearances, to put your prejudices aside, and to act with heart. He stood up and approached Emily, placing a firm hand on her shoulder. You have a chance now. Keep going. Be an exemplary nurse, not just for me, but for everyone you care for. And remember, attentiveness, vigilance, and compassion are the true measures of your worth. Emily felt tears welling up in her eyes. That day, she understood that the lesson she had received went far beyond mere professional discipline. It was a lesson in life, respect, and humanity. As she left the office, she passed Vanessa, smiling and holding her baby. Their eyes met, and without a word, Emily knew everything had changed. The carelessness of the rainy night had been replaced by vigilance, empathy, and redemption. The mistake had been painful, but the lesson was unforgettable. Emily Carter would never be the same again. She had become a conscientious, respectful, and deeply humane nurse, ready to face each night, each patient, and each challenge with courage and compassion.